radio, and the print media. She's covered the news with an outside the Beltway perspective. Her experience as an investigative journalist ranges from national security issues like Gitmo's Khalid Sheikh Mohammed 9/11 trial, immigration, foreign policy. She's a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network, and streams live at Periscope.com, Facebook, and YouTube. And let me check, Kimberly, are you on Facebook? Can you hear me?
I am, and I can hear you just fine.
All right, you sound like you're in the elevator, but that's quite all right, because you're on your way up all the time. Well, your latest, after the 24-hour circus, that would be struck, I'm assuming, Trump flip-flops on Russia's meddling. And, of course, not only Trump, but anything the Democrats could say that, I said, what's like a tennis match? They just keep serving and serving and serving this fake news and whatever they can do. If Trump hiccup, they would, make some big deal out of it. But apparently backpedaled a little bit, didn't he? And I don't hold him any blame on that for some reason.
Well, I mean, all presidents misspeak. I mean, President Obama did it. President Bush did it, certainly. So I think that this was, a big trip for the president. It was a fairly long trip. He had to deal with NATO. Then he had to go deal with the UK. He had protesters all over the show. And I think that when he went to Helsinki, and by the time he got there, he's not the kind of guy that's going to get in a fight and a brawl with somebody. Although he talks tough on the campaign trail, we don't necessarily see that, because I think what he's doing is trying to give Russia the benefit of the doubt and not lambaste them. And I really think that the media really opened the door and they cornered the president on this by getting together and making sure that first question was regarding this, knowing the president wasn't going to say that. And knowing that, even though, what the president said, that other actors are involved here, namely, and the chief among them is China. And we're not talking about China every day doing this, but they're actually the one that's out there every day hacking.
Let me ask you this, Kimberly. It is my understanding, because they said the emails that went out from Hillary Clinton, 33,000 whatever, except for 4. I think that was a number. That really threw me. But anyway,
8.
They announced the other day that, no, it wasn't Russia. And I think somebody said it was China.
Yeah. Well, it's a fact. I mean, the Chinese have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar on multiple occasions. They're always after stealing, intellectual property that, someone like Apple or IBM, when they come up with new software, or the latest technology when it comes to defense contracting, they're stealing all this information. That comes at a cost. But for whatever reason, Russia seems to be the biggest boogeyman right now, and the media is really playing on this. Yeah. And I think that it's taken out of context, certainly.
Well, Russia is the biggest boogeyman, of course, because it's, Mueller's collusion, number 1. Number 2, I don't think they are going to take on China, because Obama, let me put it this way. You tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't the Chinese hack the Pentagon under the Obama administration, and there was nada from the mainstream press?
Yeah, I mean, there was. And also, if you remember, Angela Merkel had her cell phone hacked by the U.S. government. So we do this as well. And I think what the mainstream media took issue with the speech or the press conference in Helsinki is the fact that the president actually pointed out that most countries that have any kind of, technological advances are doing this. It's not just Russia. We're participating. The Ukrainians are doing this. The Chinese, the Japanese, North Korea, they're all doing that. And I think that that's what they took issue at, because that would actually validate what the president has been saying all along.
Well, Kimberly, as we go into this bottom of the hour break, I, came to the conclusion that you can't blame a lot of these Democratic voters. Because, for example, I think a lot of them are in the dark and don't even realize that their own president meddled in Netanyahu's election. But see, when they do it, all of a sudden it's okay, and you don't hear it from the mainstream media. But if Trump puts the wrong shoe on the wrong foot, oh my God, we'd be having a bulletin right now. We're going to take a break. We'll return to Kimberly Dvorak, her website, thekdreport.com. She's on Facebook, Periscope.com, and YouTube. Be right back. CRN Chet Wilder with Kimberly Dvorak, and it is thekdreport.com. You can sign up there, and you can get this interview later after she posts it. You can always watch that. And of course, you can watch it live, Periscope.com, YouTube, Facebook. And I got to ask you right off, I noticed on Facebook there's like a CBS2 logo. Did you make a deal that you didn't tell me about?
No, I didn't make any deal. I have no idea. That's most likely Facebook doing advertising. So I guess that's a good thing, because that means that actual people are, interested in listening to what we have to say. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I think CBS probably run out a really good talk show host. They said, hey, let's go with Chuck, let's go with Kimberly, and yeah. In your report, which is entitled After the 24-Hour Circus, Trump Flip-Flops on Russia Meddling, Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, released a statement, you say, after the pressure ended, quote, "We have been clear in our assessment of Russian meddling in the 2016 elections and their ongoing pervasive efforts to undermine our democracy, and we will continue to provide unvarnished and objective intelligence in support of our national security." And then the Trump critic, former CIA Director John Brennan, called Trump's actions treasonous. Now, you can't get much worse than that. Treasonous.
Well,
And Brennan, boy, I guess he would be one to know, huh?
yeah, well, I mean, I think the question that is not being asked and not being pointed out by any stretch is the fact that the very people that are criticizing the president for his remarks, and that that the president's going way too easy on Russia, those are the people who were in charge when this all took place. So if this was such a threat to our democracy, then why didn't President Obama heed the warnings, presumably from CIA Director John Brennan or his DNI advisor James Clapper? Those are people that had the president's ear on a daily basis, and they did. Apparently they might have given the president some sort of briefing on this, but this was during the 2016 cycle. So President Trump didn't even have any political experience at the time, let alone know what was going on with the Russia situation. And again, I mean, if we go back to, the election cycle, and we go back to the hacking, and we go back to the DNC, and the FBI during this entire summer of 2016 was trying to get the servers of Hillary Clinton or the BlackBerries that she was using, of these 30,000 plus emails. And they didn't get access to it. Well, why on earth did the Democrats and the left not just go ballistic over the summer, going, where is that server? Why aren't our federal officials not having access to that? We need to figure out what's going on. Our election is at stake. But we didn't hear any of that, because presumably Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and they didn't want to mess with the apple cart, so to speak, on this one.
There would be none of this collusion if Hillary would have won, because there would be no investigation, no matter what. And I remember whenever Trump first brought up this, this thing about Hillary's emails and the server missing and stuff like that. And I was kind of thinking myself, and this might have been one of those few times I was wrong, Kimberly, but I was thinking, I don't think he should air his dirty laundry about Hillary during this summit. And maybe I'm wrong, but it sort of put him in a whole new perspective,
Well, I think, and also, like we said before the break, I think that, the media, before the president even got to Helsinki, they had a plan in place, and they wanted to get the president on record of saying that Russia is a bad, evil country, and they're the ones who hacked into our election system and changed the vote. If the president would have admitted to something like that, the president would have been essentially admitting that he won an election that wasn't, on the up and up. Therefore, we need to get him out and have another election because he wasn't elected duly by the republic in this country. And, of course that's nonsense, but that's where they were trying to go with this. And I just have one point on this, on a theory, and this is a hunch or a theory that I have about this. I think that you're seeing, James Comey, you're seeing Brennan, you're seeing Clapper, you're seeing a whole host of people that are, aligned with the deep state or the neocons. They want this story to be squashed. So if they're able to win back the House in 2018, this November, then that means that they'll be able to squash the president, and they'll be able to squash any kind of investigation into their actions during the 2016 cycle. So I think there's a little more at stake here than just the president's ego on this. I think that the people, Mueller, they're stretching for ideas. They're trying to put this out, more ideas. Let's see what we can do. And I think there's a very specific reason for that, because they want to make sure that they have time to cover up whatever involvement they may have had in the 2016 election meddling.
John Brennan, Obama appointed him as CIA director, and is he a registered communist, or did he just vote?
No, I believe he's a registered Democrat at this point, but it's been reported that during college he registered as communist. It's it's not a stretch to know that he had deep ties to the Middle East and to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So take what you will from that as well. And also keep in mind that during Obama's first term, he tried to get John Brennan confirmed into a cabinet position, but there was way too much pushback from his own party. So there was no way that, Brennan was going to be, working in the government right up front. He took a 4-year break and came back to work, and obviously as the CIA director. And he just doesn't have a very clean record. And I think that,
I was going to ask you, weren't there any Muslim Brotherhood members that could have taken that CIA slot? But then again, you're telling me about his connections. Maybe he was close enough to the Muslim Brotherhood. You know what I'm saying?
The thing with John Brennan, too, is, and I reported on this during the second term of the Obama administration, is that he really didn't even have the support of the people that worked underneath him. He didn't have the rank and file support. And he was always kind of a renegade. He didn't really have field experience per se. So he wasn't well respected. He worked his way up through the FBI and was a in the field guy and knew all aspects of the CIA. So he didn't have the support necessarily of a lot of the CIA agents. And it's not a stretch. We know he was in the tank for Hillary. We knew he was trying to do everything he could to get Hillary elected. And, we have to ask the question. I think the American voters need to ask the question, why would a CIA director do something like that? What is his motivation for doing something like that? We have not got the answer to that yet.
Yeah. Now then, there was an interesting article and talking about, the indictment. I read it this morning from the American Thinker. And I wanted to get your take on this. Robert Mueller's indictment of 12 officers of the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, was purely for domestic propaganda purposes. The case was never intended to come to trial because it was presumed by Mueller that Russia would never extradite its own intelligence officers, and thus no holes would be poked in the purported evidence by the defense counsel. Mm-hmm. And here's the goodie. Of course, anybody with half a brain would see that once the United States legitimizes criminal indictments of foreign intelligence officers in this way, other nations would apply the same logic to our own intelligence operation. So, kind of interesting, isn't it?
And also, and I believe we discussed this last week on the show, that once a case is open like this, now it's an ongoing investigation. So guess what? Now we're not talking about it, because now you're not going to get any kind of communication from the FBI, the special counsel, DOJ.
Trust defense cannot discuss an ongoing investigation.
So it's a way to squash discussion as well. And the Mueller group, they knew full well that this was, going to, actually fall on deaf ears with Russia. And actually, I think what kind of shocked, Mueller and some of the Democrats was that, Putin said, okay, well, I'm going to challenge you. Okay, bring your guys here. We want to talk to your guys. So, he kind of called the bluff here. And of course, we're not sending any of our people to Russia. But I think that he did it in a way, and I think that this is what President Trump wanted to get out. Is like, look, these silly games we're playing are taking away from what we should be working on. That's the economy. That's, America first. That's getting everybody back to work. That's improving education. That's, what the bread and butter is for every middle-class American across this country. They really don't care about Russia. In fact, there was a poll that came out today saying it's less than 1% of the U.S. population cares about Russia. So that should tell you, that should actually, highlight to CNN or clue them in that, maybe we ought to move on to a different topic here. Something that's going to actually affect change. Yeah.
Because even you and I are not moving on. We get on this and we fall into their so-called trap. But what I like to do, and I think you're along the line with this, is that if there's something, that is so obvious that the people who are not, hearing it from conservative broadcasts, they need to know about it, And if, for example, how Obama meddled in the Israeli election, very few people know about that. And then you and I have discussed, Benghazi. See, that was about the whole overthrow of Gaddafi, wasn't it? Wasn't that his name?
Yeah, it was.
And then, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, with Benghazi at least too. When you look at Benghazi, you see what the FBI didn't do, and they didn't get to Libya for a couple weeks, and the crime scene was completely contaminated. So here's supposed to be the creme de la creme of our intelligence agencies in the FBI, and they didn't even bother to go down to Libya to check out what happened in Benghazi until weeks later. So, it's hard, I think, for the average American to kind of comprehend all of this stuff, thinking, well, you know what, if I did that, I would be doing that first. And we give them credit. I give the voters credit that they kind of get and understand this. And I think every day the Democrats talk about impeachment, every day the Democrats talk about Russia, is a good day for the president, and is a good day for the blue wave that's more like maybe not even a blue wave at all. Because Americans, if you look at the polls, they just don't care about it. They want to know that they can send their kids to school. And those are issues that are very real to Americans, and they're paying attention to what's going on as far as economic issues. And other than that, it's noise, and I don't blame them for not wanting to tune in and listen too much about that. So, that's why we carry on here and we talk about immigration issues that continue to haunt this country. And those are issues that the American people are more interested in. But, the mainstream media always tries to take it where they want. And it's like the election cycle itself. They just didn't get why Trump was popular and was going to win. And it looks like they still haven't learned that lesson.
I just wish two things mainly. On immigration, whenever they start talking about anything to do with immigration, and they come back with their counter punch, Trump is locking up those children. Why weren't you worried about it when Obama did it? Okay. Then, all of this Russian collusion, all right, we found out from Strzok, I guess we found out from Putin about the $400 million contribution to Hillary Clinton's campaign from the guy in Russia. And, bring that up. And the main thing is, if you want Russian collusion, let's talk about Hillary selling our uranium to the Russians. Now, Mr. What was his name, Brennan? Wouldn't that be treasonous?
Yeah, well, he was advising Hillary Clinton, I believe, at that time. But I think, again, that this is part of the conversation where, I think the president was perfectly welcome and looking forward to the idea of putting Hillary Clinton behind him, not really talking about her too much, moving on, doing the job that he had to do for the American people. And you've got the DNC day in and day out coming after the president. And he's not a guy that just sits there and takes it and takes it and takes it. Occasionally he throws it back. And in this case, it's pretty embarrassing when he throws something back saying that, there are other countries that are actually hacking into our systems. And we heard yesterday from our FBI director, Mr. Ray, saying that the number one threat for our country right now in terms of hacking is China. It's not Russia. And he didn't say that it wasn't important that Russia wasn't on top of it. He wanted to highlight that China is the main character and bad actor in all of this. And we're not talking about China. And that's, I think, a topic that's worth discussing. We should talk about what's going on in China. But again, the media they have a small mind. I'm in the Beltway right now, and they talk amongst themselves in a circle, and they all agree with each other. And this is what we're going to do. And the American people are just too stupid to get what we really know because we're really smart. And that's what you see here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as far as I know, Trump never brought up to Putin about, the rockets being launched or the high-class submarines they developed and all this stuff, So,
or the soldiers that the president authorized a drone strike in Syria, and we killed a bunch of Russian soldiers. We didn't hear anything about that, but they want us to worry about.
The only thing I heard today was that they did have a deal about where Russia wasn't going to do a whole bunch of stuff there in Syria, which is good.
It's a good thing.
Kimberly, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I'm going to bring up the fact that, where's it at? I guess San Francisco is going to allow illegal aliens to vote in their upcoming school board election. Just sort of put your foot in the water and then dive in eventually. Kimberly Dvorak, VKDReport.com. That's VKDReport.com. Everybody's talking CRN, just love it with Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning security investigative reporter, TV, radio, print, and as I said earlier, she uses the chisel and stone occasionally. Yes. All right. Now then, California IA, here they go again, and the report says, that while there's nothing stopping local governments from extending votes to non-citizens for local elections, federal law does require that they be conducted independently of voting for candidates such as a federal office. That's 18 U.S.C. 611. But the report I saw here that given so many non-citizens already registered to vote in federal elections because of the voter laws, weak verification, no way are they going to keep up. This is sort of here's another step in the door and see if you can get away with it. That's kind of my bottom line there, Kimberly.
Yeah, and I agree with you on this. I mean, I think also voters are looking, okay, so why are we paying taxes and following the law? Because these folks who are in the country and now presumably going to vote in San Francisco, and this is a law that's passed in some cities in Maryland and in Massachusetts as well. So what's so we shouldn't follow the law? And I think that actually the worst aspect about this is you have how many people waiting in line to come to this country lawfully. And what you're doing is you're throwing this in their face saying, we could care less that you're trying to go through the process lawfully, spend the money and get in line. And if you just sneak across the border or overstay a visa, we're happy to accommodate you. What message does that send to people who are actually trying to do this the right way? I think it's a real slap in the face. San Francisco does a lot of this stuff.
It's that same old rubber stamp, Kimberly, from the Democrats.
Yeah.
It's for the children.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, if you have an illegal alien, all right, in the classroom, you sort of say, I'd like to have some input. But you know what? If you really want input, let's assimilate. Let's become citizens. Nothing wrong with that. And like this story I had, it said, talk about foreign influence in our elections. Yeah. Who needs the Russians with something like this going on?
Yeah, and again, it's a foot in the door, and it just says, okay, well, if they're allowed to vote in this election, why can't they vote in the statewide election? And then it'll be, why can't they vote? So again, it just...
Prejudice. Yeah, they'll be hollering, you know, you're prejudiced. You let us vote in the little tiny election. Why not the big election?
Exactly.
Because we don't matter. Is that what you're saying, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly
Well,
where
let's
it's
get your
going.
DNA and see if you really are who you say you are. And what is it, 40% of those parents who brought the children across were not really the parents of the children?
Yeah, so we learned that. So, I mean, what else are they lying about? I mean, and again, they're coming here, they're flouting that they have broken immigration law. So in essence, they've committed at least one crime by overstaying or illegally entering the country. And then every time they like sign on the dotted line that they're American citizen or get a job, that's another crime. You know, driving a car without insurance, another crime. So, you know, and the big thing that happens with a lot of these illegal aliens is identity theft. They steal identities, they buy identities. And nobody talks about that factor, that you have to go to the DMV and hassle that.
Well, I'll tell you what, in my opinion, there's two lies, all right? And one of them I have no problem with, that's immigrants, all right?
Yep.
No problem. The other one, illegals, yeah, get in line, please, you know, my goodness. Well,
Absolutely.
Kimberly, we have run out of time. I want you to have a super duper weekend. And are you in D.C. or San Diego or in between?
DC. I'm in DC. So.
All right. Go find a marine monument and take a picture of it, okay?
All righty.